We've all been there. A close friend or family member comes to you with an urgent request. They need to borrow money, and not just a small amount, maybe $5,000 or more. On the spot, you're torn between wanting to help and worrying about what this could mean for your finances, and even more importantly, for your relationship. Lending money to people we care about is one of the hardest financial decisions to make. It's not just about whether you can afford it. It's also about trust, expectation, and the risk of turning a personal bond into a financial transaction. In today's episode, we're going to unpack the hidden cost of lending to friends, the power dynamics it creates, and how to approach this dilemma with clarity and care. And joining me in this discussion is Dinesh, who recently wrote an article on this topic. Dinesh, welcome to the Dollars and Sense Podcast.
I'm happy to share on this topic, but I don't want to put out there caveat. I did not write this article because someone came to me or because I needed to borrow.
Okay, so just to be clear, you didn't write it because of a personal experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just wrote it because you felt this was a topic that was important.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you, what's the first thing you think someone should be considering when a family member or friend asks for a loan?
Yeah, I think we also discussed this, and I think the first thing is, let's make sure the scams are all out of the question, right? So if it comes from a digital platform, make sure it's your friend.
That is actually WhatsApping you.
Yeah, rather than someone else who's taken over the account, right?
Okay.
So, and then the next level is make sure your friend or family member wanting to borrow money, he's not being scammed.
Right. So if he comes to you with $10,000, you want to make sure that it's not because he needs to pay some guy in overseas.
Exactly. Do you need to really ask him why? That's your question. And this is really why it's so tricky, right? So the minute you send over the money to them, the dynamics of that relationship change. Not just in the instant, but maybe even forever. So normally you would never question a person's lifestyle. Or, if I see someone going on a holiday, buying a car, I feel good for them, happy for them. But if that person owes you money...
Oh, then you don't feel happy for them anymore.
It's harder. It's definitely harder, right? It doesn't just happen even if they're paying you back, right? Because we're not a bank, right? And emotions are involved whether we like it or not, right? So if we see someone who owes you or owes us money, upgrading their car, right? And then you realize, hey, he's still actually paying me X amount of dollars every month. Even if he's on time, you're wondering why he couldn't pay you earlier.
Right.
Whereas a bank would never ask that question. Right?
Yeah,
so the emotions are involved here.
So when you borrow from a bank, the bank looks at it clearly as a financial transaction.
Yeah.
So there will be a covenant in place. It will say how much I'm lending you, what's the interest you have to pay, and by when you must fully repay me the loan.
Yeah.
And if you fail to do so, the banks, it's not that they want to be mean or anything, but they know what to do next.
It's just business for them.
It's just business. You get a legal letter, asking you to pay up by then. If you don't pay up by then, someone might come to your house, ask for the payment. I don't know. I'm not saying the bank do it. I'm just saying the bank know what to do in the event of a default, right? You can be made a bankrupt or what.
Yeah. No, and even in this scenario, the bank may not even want that repayment earlier, right? So we say we may feel that we want it earlier. Hey, why can't you pay us back earlier? The bank doesn't even want
it's okay if you want to take it for 2 years. Yeah. You just have to pay more in terms of interest.
Correct.
So, you're right? Whereas if you are lending or borrowing from a friend, it's actually a personal relationship that it's in place first.
Yes.
Right? You're borrowing from someone whom you know. Someone is lending you money because they know you. And you are actually sort of like risking the relationship for that financial transaction, if I could to put it. And if the person fails to pay you back, you might feel that, the person is not upholding his side of the bargain, especially if he showed the propensity to spend on other areas like a new car or going to Japan again with his family.
Yeah, no, I'll even extend it a little bit further. This one I'm not sure how true it is. Maybe I'll one day be in that situation, hopefully not. Is that even after the person pays you back, I'm wondering whether there's some subconsciously at the back of your mind, you think that, hey, I've helped this guy before. And then you may expect, some acknowledgement or something to that regard. Let's just make us an example.
Okay.
I lend you, maybe let's just put $5,000. Then I would at least want to know, okay, firstly, we've checked off, no scams, you are not being scammed, all of that. Then I want to also know that, hey, this guy is not just going to gamble it. This guy is not just going to go and, do some other vices with it, right? Could be drug related, could be other vices,
Fair
right?
enough.
You want to use it for a good reason. Maybe in the middle, the guy wants to go on a holiday, then you're like, hey, but you should have saved for it, right?
Yeah. I can't imagine why it's like a holiday would be okay. The thing I have in mind is actually like medical expenses actually.
Yeah.
Because those are really the situations in life where the medical expenses can be quite high. It could be an accident that happened overseas and the medical bills just stack up.
Yeah.
That's usually that period where people are more desperate. They may not have the kind of savings that's required to, if it's a 6-figure medical bills, they may not have the kind of savings that they need.
Yeah.
And that's where, rightfully so, they really need help and they might ask their friends for help.
In those situations, you would instantly know the reason. You wouldn't have to ask the reason, right? So if you have to ask the reason, that means you're not very sure. There's nothing in their lives that, make you think this guy might need money. So there might be some underlying issue. So I think asking the question is trying to uncover whether there's an underlying issue. Yeah. So if the underlying issue is you fall short of reno loans is not great, but still not too bad, then okay, you may consider lending him the money. But if it's just to fuel his gambling, fuel some drug related or vice related habits, then maybe more concerning, because it's not going to be the last time, right?
Yeah. In fact, if you lend him, then it might happen again and again, and there'll be no end to it, because him borrowing money from you is just a symptom. It's not actually the root cause of the problem, which is the gambling addiction, right?
Yeah, and that's why we can go maybe a step further to help him, right? And then it comes in whether he wants to be helped. Talking about just gambling debts, I think the main thing is that sometimes you want to help the person. If they have debts, you want to help the person, but there also needs to be some level, I feel, of assurance that these things won't happen again. But if the person is still addicted to gambling, then it's easy to imagine that this problem will still happen again in the future. And I think renovation is one of those very classic example where I can see that happening actually, right? So you get your new BTO flat, it's a great time for you. You paid the down payment, money's a little bit short as a new couple, especially, if you have to buy furniture and all those things. And I can see it quite often that people might need a reno loan. Right? And obviously the banks do provide reno loan. A way to not have to incur interest on those renovation loan is maybe to borrow money from someone whom is okay to give it to you. And quite often in Singapore, that person could be your parents. Ideally, it's interest-free if you take it from your parents. Because if you borrow it from the bank, you might need to pay 2, 3, 4% per annum. Is that more okay? Do you think people, including parents, are just more accepting of giving their children that kind of loan versus something else? Like, for example, take the money to go on a holiday. Yeah, so I think it doesn't detract from our first point, right? So the parents in this case still have to uncover why. Obviously, if the kid just bought a house, then he probably would know why, and it's more acceptable, right? At the same time, the parents also don't want to leave themselves in a position where, they are lending their retirement funds, and then if they know, the kid cannot easily repay, sometimes, the kid just needs a few months to save from his salary, then you pay you from that, right? As a parent, you kind of know sometimes. But if this person, even if it's your kid, cannot pay you back and your retirement is in jeopardy, then you have to really think twice as a parent also, right? Imagine putting your retirement in jeopardy, having to work 5 years more because your kid didn't pay you back that 50,000 he borrowed from you. As a parent, you kind of know whether your kid just needs that few months, right, to save up from his salary and pay you back. You will kind of know already because you've grown up with him for the last 30, 40 years. You know his character, his lifestyle, and you know whether he can pay you back or not in general. But I wouldn't think that, you should just easily, even as a parent, just give him your life savings and imagine that he will take care of you in your retirement, right?
Yeah.
So what is the trade-off?
Yeah, I think for me personally, this is what I feel, right? Which is that, the amount that you lend, if you want to lend, should be an amount that you are okay to give also. So if the amount that you are lending feels too high to the point where you're worried that the person may not return you next time, and if the amount is something that you can't comfortably afford to give, and okay, if the person doesn't return you, that's still fine, then maybe it's an amount that's too high to be lent out in the first place.
I spoke to a few people because they read the article as well. We were just discussing it. Sometimes when it goes in the few hundreds, you are more willing to not get paid back.
For you, not for everyone.
No, that's what I'm saying. When I talk to other people as well,
okay.
So they are also maybe a few hundred.
Maybe your friends are okay with that few $100.
No, it's not great. I get your point. It's not great, but they are more willing because of that relationship as well. It's not as though I'm lending someone on the street.
No, but is that also an extent of the fact that of your personal preference on how much you are okay to just kind of give away without expecting a return?
Exactly.
Because I can imagine a billionaire might be okay. I mean, we don't know any billionaire people,
unfortunately.
But I'm just saying that perhaps for them, $5,000 is no big deal. Whereas for us, $5,000, I think you need to return me, right?
The hundreds is where, it's already getting into the uncomfortable level. Then when you go into the thousands, that's when maybe you already earmarked that money for something, right, in your life. And I also feel like if you're not comfortable with the amount, you can obviously give a smaller amount, right? So the person has come to you, not for no reason, he's really having this issue, whether it's good or bad. There are a few things that I think you can do, right? Even if you can't lend him the full amount of money, you can say, hey, I can contribute a smaller amount with no strings attached maybe, so easier on your peace of mind, you have peace of mind. And also for him, right, he don't have to pay you back. So I think it's win-win in that regard. You can also maybe try to help him. I don't know how receptive some people may be in that position because they are already under a lot of stress. I can't imagine you say, hey, you got gambling problem, let me help you right now with your gambling problem. And then the third thing I could, just maybe imagine in a situation is, you bring a group together, so this person doesn't just borrow from you as a good friend. And this solves two things. One, you kind of ascertain whether he's been just going around the group borrowing from everyone, and then not paying everyone back at the end of the day, or borrowing incrementally more and paying the last person, so you don't know who's the last guy on the merry-go-round. And two, there are more people to help him out, right? It doesn't just stay as a stress within one or two person, right? There are more people to help him out. Maybe more money, maybe more support in other ways also.
Yeah, but I just feel like for people who actually need to borrow money, that's kind of not what they want happening, right? To let a larger circle of friends know that, hey, I kind of need I need money for a certain reason, right? It's not exactly something which people want to shout out for. When it's publicly known, it's a bit easier to rally more people to help your friend, compared to if it's a private reason. Right. So in the event of an accident overseas, for example, and that can be quite quickly publicly known, then rally other people to maybe help him instead of giving maybe a large amount on your own that you may not be able to afford.
Having a bigger group, maybe just one other person, right? It's a lot more emotionally supportive of the person lending the money as well, right? And the person borrowing, not preferred also, but maybe he gets support from two people.
I just want to talk about some practical tips if you want to lend. Is it weird to ask for it to be in writing?
I think on some level, yes. But maybe it may protect you if you ever want to go to court. There's some black and white.
Right.
He did borrow this amount of money from you. There's some paper trail. You pay now him the money. There's some paper trail to it. I'm not sure whether you stand up in court, but I think on some level, yes, there's some track record of the transaction happening.
If the person sign and say that they want to borrow.
But I think what I would say to that question actually, there are some things I definitely would not do. Right? I would not place that interest. Hey, you go and borrow from personal loan, you pay X%, I pay you. You pay me X minus 1%.
I don't know, is that even legal in the first place?
So I'm
wondering there must be those licensed money lender. I'm sure there is some legality towards having to charge interest, right? I just can't imagine.
I'm not sure what the legality is, but you definitely don't want to do that.
I think, obviously if you lend and you get return and the person is grateful, that helps. That's a great outcome. But quite often, I think we all agree things may not go that way. You can't lend an amount that you yourself feel uncomfortable with, because there's always the chance that you don't get back the money. Any last thoughts on how you can say no without damaging the relationship? Is it possible?
I read this quote. They attributed it to the Bible, I didn't read it. Maybe you can confirm it. It says the borrower is going to be slave to the lender, and I think there's some truth to that, right? Once you borrow money from someone, you're kind of enslaved in some way.
Yeah.
Whether through paying it back until the debt is repaid, or the lifelong knowledge that this person helped you, right? There's going to be some form of, I think the word slavery here is used in a very broad context.
Yeah, but basically you owe him something, right? Yeah.
And I think do it as a last resort, because it's not going to be comfortable for you or for the borrower or lender in this case.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's framed like you are their last resort, which is why they're coming to you. And then it feels very difficult to say no after that. So I would push back. I will always push back, because I will always want other people to also know. Because as uncomfortable as it is for the other person, it is for me as well. And even if I don't mind supporting, I need that bigger support group for myself maybe.
What if the person who is asking you for money is a close family member, maybe a sibling or parent or something, and whether or not they tell you directly or you already can infer what's their next step going to be, is that they're going to borrow money from a money lender. Does that force the potential lender, myself for example, into a very, very difficult situation? Because if I lend him the money, I get the feeling that this may not be the last time he borrows from me. Because maybe he has there's a reason why he has a debt.
I know
in the first
exactly
place.
where this is going, which is why I said bring more people in. Because at the end of the day, whether you lend him the money now, right? The question is going to be framed as, if you don't lend me, I'll go to a unlicensed money lender. That's even one step beyond.
Which is not what anybody wants.
No one wants that. Not even the person lending.
Correct.
Not in my interest as well. Especially if your family, close friend. But that will eventually happen, right? If you know this person is managing his money poorly, he will go down that route, whether not today, in a year or in 2 years, and you will get into that situation
problem anyway
in 1 or 2 years. So why not make it solution where more people, everyone who's going to be eventually involved, bring them all on board, and then you solve the underlying issue.
So he owes that gratitude to like 10 people instead of just one person in a way.
I think there's that support structure of like 10 people is now maybe unfortunately scrutinizing his spending habits, which may not be a bad thing, right? Not preferred for him or her, but may not be a bad thing. I've also seen questions about co-signing on loans then, because that person has bad credit or credit he can't get, then he gets you or his parents to co-sign on a loan that then you are on the hook for.
Yeah,
right.
So like a guarantor, like a guarantor, right?
You're not lending him the money, but essentially you are.
It's not really you are the one lending. It's more like you are the one borrowing, actually.
You are the one borrowing.
You are like the one borrowing, because if the person don't return, you are the ones who have to return the money. So you're not the one lending, but you're the one borrowing, which it's also another thing that you might be cautious about as well. Because
So just signing as a co-signer on any agreement.
Before we close, just remember this: lending money to friends and family is never just about the dollars and cents. It's also about boundaries, values, and the kind of relationship we want to preserve. Saying yes may feel generous, but sometimes the wiser choice is to say no, or to find other ways to support the people you care about. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to follow the podcast so you won't miss future episodes. And if you know someone facing a similar dilemma, share this episode with them. It might give them the clarity they need. We'll see you again.